having so much fun in the studio. We've decided it's 1 o'clock somewhere, and with every good bottle of wine, there is some amazing cheese. So we're going to go back to Annelies, who's going to tell us a little bit about the Cyprus Foods cheese that was supplied this morning. Tell us a little bit, where did the story start?
Yes, so thank you for having us. It started as a one-man band. The owner of the company, Ashwin Parabu, he literally started this little business in the back of his bakkie. He got suppliers to supply him with the cheese, and he'll deliver it. He would deliver it to different stores, and that's how he started building up a client base. Yes, he started as a small business owner. He had a vision, and he wanted to be the preferred cheese supplier of choice.
The purveyor of fine foods.
Absolutely. And a couple of years later, we're looking at supplying about 230 tons of cheese a month to different retail stores and restaurants. So we're very proud of that. And also it's because of relationships.
Now tell me something, how many different types of cheeses are there? Or is that an on-the-spot question?
It's almost an open answered question. But
what are the most popular cheeses?
A lot of the retail stores would buy their bulk cheeses. So that would be your normal cheddar, your mozzarella, and your Gouda. So that's your three mainline cheeses. And then, of course, we've got halloumi, we've got feta, we've got Parmesan, either the grated or the little wedges of cheese. We've got the blue cheese, pepper cheese.
Do they also supply other things besides cheese? For instance, olives or sort of delicatessen foods?
Yes, we do. So that's obviously not our main line, but because we're already delivering to so many retail stores, they like ordering from the same supplier. So we can supply olives. We do olive oils. So there's a whole variety of products that we can supply.
Tell me something, in terms of the word Cyprus Foods, did he come out from Cyprus, or what's the story behind that?
We get asked that question quite a lot. So no, he didn't. He's not from a Greek descent. Ashwin just liked that name, and he put it forward to obviously register it, and that's the name that was accepted, and that's how it started. So
did he find during lockdown he was getting more sort of questions and deliveries started happening a bit more? Because I know once people went into lockdown, food requirements became a lot more than they usually were. Because, for instance, with me, I'd always worked away from home, and suddenly when I was at home, we started eating more at home.
Yes. So cheese, as you know, is on the list of preferred foods. It's not like a luxury. Funny enough, the cheese supplies were still in demand. We could still deliver, and we were just very pleased that we were able to still deliver that service to a lot of the stores.
And I think one of the things that and tell me something, do you supply people at home, or do you supply via retailers?
So our main focus is obviously retailers, and they order bulk from us, but there's no line to say that we can't supply to individuals. Obviously the retail stores, because they take bulk, they might get it at a preferred costing or whatever was listed with their DC. But yes, we like to look after a variety of clients, from your retail store to your little individuals, your
and
small
do the
business
cheeses
owners.
Get made at locally, or does he buy them in?
So we actually do both. We can make our own cheese, and we also bring in from various suppliers.
So can I come and visit the cheese factory if I want to know how cheese gets made?
Yes, absolutely.
Because for me, that was always a curiosity. We used to love going to the cheese farm in Hartbeespoort, purely to see these ladies behind the glass, how they make cheese, how they churn there's like a big churn. It's almost like a butter churner.
Yes.
And they would churn that, and some of them would be made in a square loaf. Some of them. Is there a difference between square and long loaves? I mean, mozzarella always comes in a long loaf, but if you look at the cheddars, a lot of the cheddars or the cheeses that are infused with berries, they're always round. Why is that?
I think it's it's got to do with the process.
Okay.
So it's definitely got to do with the process and the type of cheese. So for example, your white cheeses, they don't have any colorants in, and the stronger the cheese, the longer the process. So obviously there's a fermentation that takes place. Certain bacteria is needed to let the cheese sit for a while and develop. And there's obviously certain cheeses that you can use almost immediately.
So am I allowed to ask, what is the red stuff around the cheese, that skin that they put around Gouda?
So that's your Gouda, that's the red wax. We call it a red wax. And that's very prominent in your Gouda cheeses.
Why is that?
I think it's to be honest, we might have to get an expert in here, but I think it's also a lot of the old school folks. They used to like ordering the Gouda around with a red wax.
I know, because one of the things that was
a protective skin that's well known for the Gouda, and if it doesn't have the holes in, it's not a pure Gouda cheese.
But you know what was funny about the Gouda? When you used to buy it on the shelf, it would have that red wrap, the red wax, and you would get a slice of that red wax. Our parents never bought the whole thing; they always bought the slice, because that was what was almost wrapped in or not cellophane. What do you call it? Glad wrap.
Yes.
And you would get home, and Mom would say, "Okay, who's having cheese on their sandwiches?" And you'd say, "We are." Dad would say, "He is," and then Mom would promptly proceed to make a dip into that cheese. So there would be a sort of a hole because she used to cut it between. Nobody would ever think of cutting it straight across. Nobody would dare to cut into the wax. So in the end, you had this sort of like U-shaped cut. Eventually, you were battling to get the cheese out because you had to cut round towards the bottom. Why is it that they never? And my mom's passed away. So, Mom, I hope you're listening, but because maybe you can send me a sign. Why did you guys do that?
It was perhaps a force of habit where, we think that it would preserve the cheese a little bit longer. We actually did exactly the same.
It's funny how you start to think of things like that, and you think, why did we have that wax? And why did we, because where the wax was also sort of a diamond-shaped hard shell. So one could almost peel the wax off, but you didn't dare to because your mom would probably shout at you because you had to dip this sort of U-shaped hole in the cheese.
I think it's just a force of habit, and what you used to do in your childhood days sometimes gets lived out in your adulthood. Things that you did when you were in
and
the
such
house
good memories of things like that, because your cheese always brings back some reason or some place that you were. When we were kids at school, we used to get those little diamond cheeses. What do you call it? The Nesquik or Nestle, sort of like, what are they? The box, the round box.
The laughing cow.
Melrose, that's it, the Melrose ones. And then from there you used to be able to, Mom always bought the cheese spread. Remember, Mom remembered Melrose. And we used to put those on, but we only got those at the end of the month because that was very expensive. Other than that, you had Marmite and fish paste. And my sister always used to say, if my mother gives me Marmite, I'm swapping out my sandwiches with the poor kids at school. And we were the poor kids. So but she'd always find somebody who had, and cheese spread was also something my sister couldn't deal with. So some months we'd have cheese spread, some days we'd have fish paste. But there were always kids in the hostel that were dying for sandwiches. So we'd trade them. So in terms of your cheeses, do you come in kilogram loaves or do they come in the big rounds? How do they come?
we do supply bulk to a lot of the retail stores, and they would cut it themselves. So they'll have specific cutters in store, and they'll cut it up and vacuum pack it to specific sizes. Which is sometimes a little bit more affordable for the public to buy cheese on a weekly basis. But we also supply loaves as well as the vacuum packs.
In terms of those cutters that they had with the gut, I'm sure it was a gut cutter, because you'd buy this cheese cutting pack and it would have this gut. Why is it that I suppose you wouldn't know why, but why do you think they would have used gut to cut cheese? I suppose because the knife gets stuck halfway through. Because if you think when I cut mozzarella at home, by the time I get sort of halfway through the loaf and I'm still cutting, the cheese tends to start sticking to the knife.
Yes.
But I would imagine with the gut, it doesn't do that.
I think it's mainly that because it's quite thin, it slices through easily, and it obviously doesn't get stuck. A lot of the cheese cutters that they use nowadays is it's a little bit of almost like a steel wire that they use.
That's right. That's what I was thinking of, more the steel wire sort of thing.
And that's something that I use at home, and it works so well.
You know how long it took me to figure out that a cheese knife that curls up with a little diamond bit at the top was so that you could turn it around and pick up the cheese you've just cut? It took me forever. About as long as it took me to know that the water where you wash your hands in the, what do you call it, the finger bowl,
Yes.
wasn't actually lemon sauce. It was so that you could clean your fingers. So it took me about as long as it did. Because there's no one that teaches you all those things.
There's no instructions, right?
I mean, you get this cheese board and you think, oh, those knives look so cool. I wonder why. And we always know that's a cheese knife, but nobody ever knew that it bent up because then it allowed you to pick up the cheese that you've just cut.
Yes.
Because, I mean, it's just FHB. You know what FHB stands for, hey? Family holdback. So, like when you got to the cheese board, it was like you'd say to everybody, FHB, and everybody knows they've got to wait for the visitors. So by the time the visitors have had the cheese and it's your turn, it's like, cut the cheese and take it and run. Because inevitably your sibling's going to help themselves.
That's so funny.
So I think cheese brings so much good memories. And you've also got Emmenthal, which Emmenthal is used for cheese fondues.
Yes, absolutely. And we've got even... cottage cheese, we've got cream cheese, and a lot of the coffee shops use those to make their cheesecakes. So there's a big variety that we supply.
I must admit, I enjoy the Emmenthal because with Emmenthal you can usually add kirsch, and you stir it up in this big pot, and you just dip your bread. And you just hope you lose your bread because that allows you to put this big spoon in and find your bread.
I love it.
And I actually miss having fondues because fondues was a big thing at one
Yes.
stage. You used to have a cheese fondue.
Absolutely.
So there's many ways for you to use cheese. And if you go online, I'm sure you can look up recipes that are cheese recipes. And of course, cheese is used in pretty much everything on macaroni cheese, mac and cheese, lasagna.
Sandwiches.
You're so fortunate to be in cheese and wine.
I know. So I am very fortunate, and I do regard myself as very blessed to be representing both Cyprus Foods as well as One Grape Holdings, because cheese and wine obviously goes hand in hand. So a lot of the retail stores that we supply to in terms of the cheese,
and do you
would
know
also
that
then order wine.
there's a biscuit called the drink biscuit. I was watching
Yes, you
Dragon's
mentioned.
Den, and I told Ken last week, I was watching Dragon's Den, and this guy came up and he said, he has a drink biscuit. And they all went, a drink biscuit? He's like, yes, drink biscuit. Because when you buy snacks at the bar, you want to have a snack. So I came up with a drink biscuit. And he has different flavors. So this drink biscuit goes with Sauvignon Blanc. This drink biscuit goes with gin or whiskey. So it's really something you should
Amazing.
think of.
Yes. But of course, that's why we now, since we've got a little bit of a head start, past COVID, we want to get into the wine and cheese tastings and get people to socialize again. You know, it is a
I'll
fun
be at
element.
your wine and chocolate one.
Fantastic. So it is a fun element.
Now, you know what you should do, hey?
Yeah.
Is you should have this basket called the wine, cheese, and chocolate tasting basket. And you have a wine, cheese, and basket Zoom call.
Okay.
So you say to everybody, okay, guys, we can take a webinar. We can take, 30 people, and we're going to have Ken on one side, you on one side, and we're going to have everybody with their hamper that they've ordered off your e-commerce
Store.
website. And you've got your e-commerce, and my basket has arrived. So now you say, right, guys, like they do on Chopped?
Yes.
Where it says, open your baskets. So you open your basket, and we all see what's inside. Then it says, okay, take out your red grape, your one grape red wine, and take out the Cyprus, what have you got sitting here? The Gouda.
Cheddar
the Cyprus
cheese or the
Gouda cheese.
yes.
Right, now you've got your plate and your glass of wine. Let's pour it, and you see everybody on the screen pouring their wine. And wouldn't that be amazing?
It would. And there's literally nothing stopping us. So we definitely want to get into that space where we can do virtual wine and cheese tastings. And I think
And you
South
don't have to
Africa's ready
drive
for
home.
it.
You don't need a designated
Yes.
driver. Do you understand that?
You can do it in the comfort of your own home.
Where can they get hold of you for both the wines and the cheese?
So they can get hold of me on my contact details, Annalise 082 444 8115. Our email address for Cyprus is info@cyprusfoods.co.za. And for One Grape, it's annalise@onegrape.co.za.
And just as a lasting thought, when are you open for e-commerce business?
We're hoping by middle of April.
And you're obviously going to use your off days and your Easter weekends and things. So your kids are going to go and play with the next door neighbors when they finish the e-commerce site.
Absolutely. It's part of our passion and what we're striving for. So we'll do what it takes to get this up and running.
And it's been so awesome having you on air this morning. Thank you for bringing the cheese and the wine and having just an awesome Friday with us.
It's our absolute pleasure, and I'm glad that you enjoyed our cheese selection.
Oh, we so
and our
did. I
wines.
must tell you, I've devoured the cheese. I've devoured my dips, which I always do. I'm my own best customer. My husband always says, do you have to be your own best customer? I said, wait till you taste the avocado and chili with mint. I said, but hang on, I'll tell you after
Sounds
my
amazing.
third bucky. It's been wonderful having Ken on as well, and I know he's busy making his next sale outside by the looks of things, which is awesome. And I hope you'll join us again.
Thank
and
you.
let us know when you have your Zoom tasting.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
It's only a
awesome.
pleasure. I'm Janine Preston, and you've been listening to, of course, it's Rock Your Morning with...